outside countries, they can see other than the fact that we live in constant wars. And it bothers me so much. They only see the side they want to see. They should look deeper.
ما فيك يا حبيبي حبيبي. هنا أكثر من 2 مليون بني آدم عايشين على أرض غزة على مساحة 25 ميل في 7.
أنا ولدت جنب البحر وراح أعيش جنب البحر وأموت جنب البحر.
أنا يمكن في القطاع كله فيش واحد مخلف 40 نفر.
كل دول العالم منطقتين غزة.
إني أنا كنت بحاسب نفسي ليش أنا أسمح لأولادي إنه يعيشوا 3 حروب.
هذا الصوت اللي لازم يسمعه الناس. بلاش. هذا الصوت اللي لازم يسمعه الناس. بلاش.
Boa tarde a todos, meu nome é Diogo Bercito, eu sou jornalista, fui correspondente da Folha de São Paulo em Jerusalém e escrevo desde 2013 o blog Orientalíssimo, dedicado ao Oriente Médio. Em nome da Mostra Mundo Árabe de Cinema em Casa, eu queria dar as boas-vindas a todos que estão nos assistindo para esse segundo bate-papo online dessa edição, após 14 anos de realização com sucesso de público e crítica, que consolidou a mostra no calendário cultural de São Paulo e agora amplia a participação para todo o Brasil. A Mostra Mundo Árabe de Cinema em Casa é realizada pelo Instituto da Cultura Árabe, o Árabe, com co-realização do SESC São Paulo e patrocínio da Câmara de Comércio Árabe Brasileira. E o evento tem ainda o apoio do Instituto do Sono e da FAMBRAS, a Federação das Associações Muçulmanas do Brasil. No bate-papo de hoje, a gente recebe 2 convidados muito especiais. O primeiro dele é o Garry Keane, um cineasta, diretor e produtor do documentário. Ele estudou na London College of Communication e na Irish National Film School. Ele trabalhou nos Estados Unidos, no Reino Unido, na Irlanda, dirigiu mais de 100 horas de documentários em mais de 20 países e foi indicado para 11 prêmios da Academia Irlandesa de Cinema e Televisão. A nossa segunda convidada é a professora Arlene Clemesha, professora de História Árabe Contemporânea na Universidade de São Paulo. Um dos focos da pesquisa da professora Arlene é justamente a história da Palestina moderna, um assunto sobre o qual ela publicou livros como Palestina, 1948-2008 e Mandato Britânico na Palestina. Entre os cursos que ela leciona estão Cultura Árabe, Nacionalismo Árabe e Orientalismo na História. E, por coincidência, a Arlene foi minha professora na USP há 10 anos, então a gente está também se reconectando aqui virtualmente. E antes da gente começar, eu queria lembrar vocês que estão acompanhando o filme, que estão acompanhando a conversa, que o filme está disponível na plataforma da Mostra, e o link para acesso vai ser postado aqui no chat. Para acessar, você só precisa fazer um cadastro e já pode assistir. Você pode assistir em qualquer momento, em qualquer dia, em qualquer horário. E você encontra a programação completa dos filmes no site do Árabe, que é www.icarabe.org. Esse site também está no link do chat. e você pode enviar perguntas durante a nossa conversa, você manda pelo chat, eu vou reunir essas perguntas e eu repasso elas para os convidados. E um último aviso, se vocês quiserem assistir o bate-papo com tradução, também tem um link aqui embaixo no Zoom, e vocês podem entrar, então, para ouvir a tradução. Garry, começar com você, uma primeira pergunta para a gente dar início à conversa. Você pode contar para a gente um pouco como é que você decidiu fazer esse documentário, qual que foi a sua trajetória saindo da Irlanda, chegando à faixa de Gaza, quer dizer, você já conhecia a região, o que te levou a fazer esse projeto?
The translation didn't kick in there, I'm afraid, but I think you're just asking me how I started the project, is it?
Yes, exactly. How did you come across this subject in particular?
Well, I've always been interested in Gaza from a very early age. I think everyone in Ireland has an interest in Gaza and has an affiliation with Gaza. I think it comes from our shared histories to some regard, but I've grown up with people talking about Gaza. And when I got old enough and went to university and started really, looking at the politics of the region, I had a fascination with it. And then when I got involved in film and started making films on my own, I always really wanted to make a film in Gaza, but I tried a few times and I just found it really impossible to get through the bureaucracy involved in getting in effectively. And then in 2012, I was in the process of researching another documentary based on conflict photographers. And I came across Andrew McConnell, who's a photographer for many years who lived in Beirut. Andrew's an Irish guy, but he had been living in the Middle East and working out there for many, many years. And I approached him about this new project. And in the course of talking, he told me that he had just finished a photographic journalistic project documentary project in Gaza called the Gaza Surf Club. So we started talking about Gaza. And when I realized he had been in twice or three times and kind of had the lie of the land and knew how to do it, I pitched the idea to him that maybe if he was interested, he'd never made films before. I'd never been to Gaza before. So the two of us decided to see could we combine and make something in Gaza. So that was in 2012. In 2014, he was there and the war broke out and he filmed some of that. And then in 2015, we went back in again. And that was the basis for the start of the film. But we didn't actually get it finished until 2018 because of severe funding difficulties.
Right. I'll ask in Portuguese again and let me know if you don't hear the translation.
I'll click over now, yeah, okay.
Me parece, então, Garry, que um dos grandes diferenciais do seu documentário é esse retrato da vida cotidiana, né? Essa tentativa de humanizar as pessoas, que geralmente são vistas só como vítimas, né? Elas são vítimas da política internacional, da guerra, do seu próprio governo. E eu acho que o seu filme reconhece que a população de Gaza é exatamente como o resto das pessoas, né? Querem surfar, como você mencionou, querem tocar o violoncelo, querem trabalhar. É assim que você enxerga também o seu trabalho, Garry?
Just flicking over, I heard that. Yeah, I mean, it was from the very start of our project, we wanted to make a film that wasn't particularly political. I mean, you can't make anything that's completely not political in Gaza. But what we found from our research and from talking to Andrew and from talking to lots of people was that, conflict is ever present in Gaza. It's everywhere. It's all day. One man said to me once, there's three phases to life in Gaza. We're either preparing for war, in war, or cleaning up after war. And when you consider a place that there's conflict everywhere at every turn, you would expect the people of that place to be defined by that conflict, to define themselves as victims of that conflict. And what you find in Gaza is that they don't define themselves like that. They don't at all. They rise above it, and they're very resilient people, and they're very defiant in a sense, not to let it, under the worst circumstances, not to let it take over their lives, because all they want to do is live lives like anyone else, have normal lives, put their children through school, have a decent home and enough food to eat. The very basics of what we all need and what we all deserve on this planet to have at our disposal. So we absolutely, from the very start of this project, wanted to enter it with a view towards putting the ordinary person of Gaza on the screen. That's why we decided to have such a large cast and to not only focus on 2 or 3 characters. We wanted, if we were going to do a portrait of a place and a people, then we felt it needed a big cast, and we wanted to cast the net wide, you know, males, females, old, young, different socioeconomic groupings from different locations along the strip, different occupations. So that was our endeavor. That's why we have such a large cast. That's why we look at the ordinary, we look at the mundane, we look at the everyman. Of course, there's always conflict there or thereabouts simmering in the background. But we wanted to bring a different view to Gaza. We wanted to do something that was much different than the news items that people are fed on a normal day. You know, these little snippets of horrible looking news that just focus on the political agendas at play in that place. And we wanted to do something vastly different because we felt from our research as well, talking to people, that people didn't know what Gaza was. I mean, most people that we did a whole research document both here and in the UK and to all of our friends throughout Europe. And about 60% of the responses that came back when we asked the question, what do you think Gaza is like? The response was, well, we think it's just a place with lots of refugee camps and tents and temporary homes. Very few people had a sense of it being a community and cities and vibrant, you know, neighborhoods and work, all the variety of work that was on there, and the variety of entertainment, and the variety of, you know, the amount of laughter that goes on in Gaza. So yeah, that was our endeavor, and that's why we set out to make the film we did. So I hope we achieve that.
Eu queria passar então a palavra à professora Arlene, porque esse é um ponto bastante interessante, Garry, esse ponto que você mencionou. Eu acho que esse debate está ligado também, e me corrija se eu estiver errado, professora, mas está ligado a esse preconceito que as pessoas têm em relação aos árabes, ao Oriente Médio, né? Na maior parte das vezes, quando alguém fala nos árabes, é sempre num contexto de violência, num contexto de extremismo, sobre guerra, explosão, e eu acho que leva mesmo a uma caricatura. Professora, como é que esse debate na academia, como é que a gente pensa nisso, do ponto de vista da história, por exemplo?
De fato, Diogo, o mundo árabe, os países árabes, e ainda mais regiões como a faixa de Gaza, são muito vistas e trabalhadas como zonas de conflito perene, de algo que os caracteriza. Então, essa caracterização através do conflito é algo que é construído de fora para dentro, não é a realidade vivida pelas pessoas, não é como eles se veem, e não é como a história mostra a região de fato, tem muito mais do que isso, mas é como o olhar externo constrói. E ao construir essa visão de uma zona perene de conflito, se desumaniza as pessoas de lá, elas são desumanizadas, e isso faz parte de um processo de dominação da representação, dominação da fala, dominação da identidade. É um processo muito longo, um processo que nos últimos 200 anos sofreu transformações, mas que hoje ainda está muito presente na mídia, está muito presente, inclusive, na necessidade que se tem, a partir de fora, de facilmente justificar ações injustificáveis, injustas, como o bloqueio à faixa de Gaza, através desse processo todo, que é um processo muito complexo. É um processo que leva todos esses fatores em consideração, mas uma das coisas básicas é isso, a apresentação da faixa de Gaza, do mundo árabe, como uma zona de conflito interminável e desumanizando e assim por diante. Coisa que o filme do Garry consegue, então, desconstruir, né?
Exatamente, professora. E justamente, eu acho que, em especial, essa imagem do mar, né, Garry, passando um pouco a palavra a você, essa ideia de que a faixa é ligada ao mar, né, é ligada à pesca, obviamente, mas também ao lazer, essa ideia de que o mar é o único horizonte para muita gente lá. Isso foi uma coisa que te surpreendeu nas suas passagens por Gaza? Como é que foi a sua experiência?
No, I mean, one earlier version of Gaza was going to be based along the seafront entirely, because we felt that the sea was such an important thing for the people of Gaza. And we did a lot of work with people along the sea, and we did a lot of filming in the sea and under the sea and around the sea, because we felt that so strong. And one of the saddest things for us as observers as well as filmmakers was, when we were there in 2015, we shot a lot of the beach sequences in 2015 because it was so vibrant, the beach. every evening you go down to the beach and the whole of Gaza was on the beach, you know, old and young, everyone in and out of the water, all their animals would come down, they'd pray on the beach, they'd party on the beach, they'd sing and dance and eat. And it was such a joyous place. But the sad thing was by 2018, because of the electricity shortages and all of the sewage treatment plants had closed down and the entire water table was polluted and the sea became polluted because raw sewage was running into it. People had to stop swimming in the sea and had to stop going to the shoreline because it just was too, you know, the smell was too bad, and stuff was getting washed up on the beach, and parents were not happy to let their children play on the beach anymore. And it was such a sad thing to spend weeks and weeks in 2008 on the beaches of Gaza and them quite empty. Bar people just, you know, bringing down their animals or something. But so that was a tragedy, and it personified something else that was happening to Gaza. It was a complete dismantling of the place. Like when the United Nations in, I think it was 2014 or 15, said that Gaza would be unlivable by 2020. I mean, this is 2020. And we're in touch with friends in Gaza every day, and it's just getting worse and worse. COVID-19 hasn't helped, obviously. And the situation there is just so appalling, and it's not getting any better. It's progressively getting worse and worse. And it's a small little place with 2 million people, and it can't sustain this blockade any longer because they're just being strangled, you know. But yeah, the sea is a place where they call it their oxygen. And it's the only place where they can't see the borders. They can't see that they're being imprisoned. Sometimes, on a rare occasion, you can go to the shoreline and look out and you don't see an Israeli gunboat. And at those times, you're just looking at a horizon the same as you can look at in Brazil or I can look at in Ireland. And it's a sense of freedom and a sense of breathing in the fresh air, and also a sense of there's a world out there, which also creates its own sadness because, you know, as much as the people of Gaza feel very let down by their own internal politics and by, you know, their near neighbors' politics, obviously, they also feel let down by the international community at large because they cannot understand how the world can stand by and witness what's happening to 2 million people in broad daylight. It's not hidden. It's not, you know, it's very easy to find out what's going on in Gaza, and what's going on there is absolutely atrocious and the whole world should be up in arms about it, but unfortunately, because of politics again and bad politics, it's not.
Se eu puder adicionar uma coisa, também tem essa tradição pesqueira, né, que eu acho que a gente vê no seu documentário também, né, essa relação simbiótica com o mar, com frutos do mar, né, com essa pesca. E, professor, agora voltando um pouco a você, o mar também serve como um muro, né, para os palestinos de Gaza, porque apesar dessa ideia do horizonte, por causa do bloqueio que você mencionou, os barcos só podem chegar a uma certa distância, né? O mar é monitorado pelo exército israelense. Você podia falar um pouquinho para a gente sobre essa situação da fronteira e sobre o bloqueio israelense em geral? Qual que é a situação hoje na faixa de Gaza?
Então, Diogo, o bloqueio à faixa de Gaza, ele vem de muito tempo, mas o bloqueio absoluto começou mesmo em 2005, quando Israel retirou os 7, 8 mil colonos que havia lá dentro, e foi no momento em que houve uma eleição para o Conselho, uma espécie de parlamento palestino, que deu maioria para o Hamas, e utilizaram isso como desculpa, o argumento para boicotar essa eleição, realizar essa retirada dos colonos e fechar completamente a faixa de Gaza, de maneira que é muito difícil, é muito trabalhoso, os próprios moradores de Gaza não entram, não saem, mais do que isso, mantimentos não entram e não saem livremente desde 2005. Então, é uma situação que se alastra agora há 15 anos, em que, como o Garry estava contando, né, ele teve lá 3 vezes, passou longos períodos, portanto, e o que se vive são quedas de energia, né, energia que é fornecida apenas algumas horas por dia, escolas sem condições de funcionar, falta de mantimentos, falta de medicamentos, falta de todos os insumos básicos para a vida. E com que motivo? O motivo alegado por Israel é sempre segurança, né? No entanto, isso não contribui em nada para a segurança, né? Por que poderia se chamar de segurança? É uma forma mais fácil de controlar a faixa de Gaza, ou seja, cercá-la completamente, retirar os colonos, e realizar o que é bastante denominado como uma punição coletiva, né? Visto dessa forma, punição coletiva, ou seja, castigar toda uma população. Por quê? Por fazer resistência, né? Por exigir sua liberdade, por exigir sua libertação. Isso é classificado, aliás, como crime de guerra, né? A punição coletiva de uma sociedade civil inteira, por um motivo que, no fundo, é um motivo político que não se resolve e assim por diante. Agora, essa transformação da faixa de Gaza numa região muito pequena e absolutamente cercada inclui, como você estava dizendo, o mar, porque o mar é patrulhado, agora está poluído, como o Garry estava contando, que é mais triste ainda, e se não se pode sair por fronteiras terrestres, não se pode sair pelo mar tampouco, e tampouco se chegar pelo mar. Houve algumas tentativas de furar esse bloqueio marítimo através da flotilha, né, Flotilha da Liberdade, que já há bastante tempo vem tentando, né, e agora menos, porque tem sido impossível, mas foram feitas algumas viagens muito importantes dessa flotilha, mais que nada para chamar atenção, porque ela acaba não conseguindo realizar, de fato, uma entrega de medicamentos e suprimentos e tudo mais. Ou seja, é algo que realmente, como o Garry estava falando, não se justifica, não poderia acontecer nos dias de hoje uma punição coletiva de 2 milhões de pessoas por uma política mal conduzida, por um problema mal resolvido, criado pela comunidade internacional, criado por um passado colonialista, com interferência da ONU e tudo mais, e uma população que vem, então, sendo vítima disso, né? Porque, como acho que esse filme muito bem mostra, ele mostra isso, a vontade de viver. A vontade dessa população de viver. E aí, se me permite, Diogo, colocar aqui uma perguntinha para o Garry, me chamou muita atenção mesmo, Garry, que no seu filme, é claro que o olhar do diretor tá muito presente no filme, né? Ao mesmo tempo que você consegue dar voz para quem está lá, para deixar que eles se expressem, o seu olhar está lá. Você se considera um otimista, Garry? Porque eu vi seu filme, apesar de extremamente duro, extremamente, né, realista, portanto, tem um momento que é essa menina que você filma e que ela está ferida, e às vezes a gente olha para aquela imagem e a gente pensa que ela talvez não esteja viva, mas ela abre os olhos e ela fala, né, e ela está viva, né? Eu queria saber se esse momento foi planejado na sua filmagem, se foi completamente por acaso que isso entrou, essa cena tão bonita e tão esperançosa da menina que a gente olha e pensa que talvez esteja morta, e ela abre os olhos e ela começa a falar. Essa menina ferida, não sei se eu estou conseguindo me expressar claramente.
Yeah. When we got back the footage from the war, the conflict, it shouldn't be really called a war, it's a bombardment in 2014, that horrible 50-day siege of Gaza when so many people were killed. There was a lot of filming done around the hospitals, obviously, because they were the center of attention, unfortunately, for so many people and their families. I don't think anybody came out of that conflict in 2014. There was no family in Gaza didn't have somebody that was killed or maimed or wounded. So that little girl was spotted on a trolley and she was asleep. And while Andrew had the camera on her, she opened her eyes. And he was so happy and everyone was so happy because they didn't really know she was kind of concussed. She was alive and everyone knew she was alive, but still, you know, when you're in that situation, and the hospitals were so chaotic, so people weren't getting attention, they were just in corners, you know. So when she was spotted, when we got back the footage, we just thought she was such a beautiful young girl, and we were so happy that she was alive. And we felt as we looked at it that possibly if we could make it work as a kind of a symbol of hope in the film, that, you know, for all intents and purposes, you know, you might think that Gaza is dying on its feet, and yet it is in one way, but in terms of the people, it's not. You know, they're amazing people. So that was in 2014. So in 2015, we went to look for her, but all we had was that image of her on the gurney, on the trolley. So our fixer in Gaza spent 3 weeks trying to find her, and all he had was a picture, and he went and knocked on every door, went back to, asked everyone in Gaza. I think he must have asked 1 million people, did they know her? And one old character one day said, I think that's a family who are living in temporary accommodation over there in one of the refugee camps. Now, the girl was a year older, obviously, and she looked slightly different, but eventually the fixer knocked on this little caravan with a little awning over the top of it, and out came her mother, and she showed the picture, and she says, yes, that's my daughter. And the daughter came out, and it was just such a beautiful moment. And just filming her on the street playing and alive and so much full of life. And she's a really smart girl. We filmed a lot more with her, but at a certain point we just felt we were intruding, so we let them be, but to spend time with her, Andrew spent loads of time with her, and just such a beautiful family, such a smart young lady. And I just hope all the best for her. But yeah, it was a beautiful moment to come across, and we obviously use it in the promo for the whole film. And I think at the point we have it in the actual film, it's there to symbolize hope after the war, so. Yeah, that was the context behind that.
Obrigado, professora, pela pergunta. Só fazer um parêntese, eu estou recebendo bastante pergunta aqui no chat, continuem mandando as perguntas e eu vou repassar elas para os nossos convidados em breve. E eu vi também que tem algumas pessoas com dificuldade na tradução. A tradução está disponível no Zoom, vocês precisam clicar em interpretação ali embaixo e escolher a língua. Ela não está disponível no YouTube. E Garry, eu queria te fazer uma outra pergunta em termos de logística, né? Como é que foi filmar em Gaza, né? Não sei se as pessoas têm ideia do quão complicado é de você precisar de diversas autorizações, né? De contatos em loco. Você pode contar para a gente um pouco qual é a dificuldade ou qual é o processo para se fazer um documentário em Gaza?
There's only two ways into Gaza, through the Rafah border on the Egyptian side, or through the Erez border in the Israeli side. And going through Egypt wasn't an option for us at the time. They basically closed that border. That border has always been problematic, It sometimes Fatah are in control of it, sometimes Hamas take control of it, sometimes the Egyptian side just close it for no good reason. At the moment, it's a cash-making device for the Egyptian army, who charge people a lot of money to let them through there, and they still have no guarantee they're going to get in. So we couldn't take a risk of going in that way. We hadn't got enough of a budget to chance it. We couldn't just arrive at Rafah and hope to get in. So we had to go through the official channels, and that's through the GPO, the General Press Office in Israel, in Jerusalem, and that's a lengthy process. You have to satisfy a lot of criteria, and unfortunately we didn't satisfy too much of that criteria, so there was a little bit of creativity had to come into play. But you apply, and then when after a long process of documents and applications, you have to go there to Jerusalem, and you're interviewed at the office of the press office. And you either get a temporary visa or not to go in for a certain amount of time. So we were given very temporary visas. I think the first one was 6 weeks, the second one was 8 weeks, and the third one was 6 weeks again. So that was our 3 shooting blocks. But yeah, once we got into Gaza, it was actually it was fine. We had no issues really filming there, apart from the last time when Hamas had got much more paranoid about anybody coming in, and they were very paranoid of spies. So we were put under house arrest for 3 days and followed for the following week and that. But eventually they got bored of us and let us do our thing. So we didn't really have any problems. Once we got in, the problems was getting in,
Certo. Imagino também que você tenha contado com um time de fixers, né? Como você disse, produtores, enfim, pessoas também que te ajudaram a fazer essa mediação com as autoridades palestinas na faixa, né? Porque eu acho que também é uma questão complicada se você fizer por conta própria, né? Você precisa desse contato local.
Yeah, we had we hired a fixer on the Israeli side in Jerusalem, and we had our fixer in Gaza, and both of those people talked about permissions on both sides. He tried to organize permissions through the press office in Israel, the guy on that side, and our guy on the other side looked for permissions from Hamas and Fatah. But for Hamas and Fatah were never really a problem. But there was nobody there when we got to our interview, and there was nobody there when we got to the border crossing. We did that on our own because for the first 3 visits, for the first 2 visits, there was only me and Andrew. Andrew on his own, then me and Andrew, and then for the 3rd visit was the first time we actually brought a crew with us. So it was very, very small, low-key filming. There was never a big crew. And myself and Andrew weren't really supposed to be going in together, so there was a little bit of a complication around that. But we ended up, the biggest crew we had was we brought 4 people in on the last visit in 2018. We brought our editor in, and we brought a sound guy in because we had no sound guy before that. And we brought the editor in because we knew we weren't going to get back in after that visit, and we just wanted to make sure that we didn't leave without everything done. And we also extended our Gazan crew to incorporate interpreters and translators for the first time ever. Before 2018, we had 250 hours of material untranslated, and no money to get a translation. So it was quite difficult to make a film when you didn't know what people were exactly saying. But we corrected all that in 2018 and got everything translated while we were there, as well as the new material we were filming. So logistically, I don't think we could have possibly, I don't think I'll ever make anything as difficult again. I don't think it's possible. I've been making films for 20 years nearly, and nothing has even come close to the complexity or the logistical difficulty surrounding Gaza. But it was worth it. You know, we never lost hope of making the film, even though when we went to recognize and reliable funding sources, all the doors closed on us the minute we said Gaza. We realized that there was a huge unsaid agenda at play amongst people who hold the purse strings and who control the budgets and funds in the film world, and not many of them really wanted this film to be made. So it was an uphill struggle on every front. You know, we were up against it, but it was our dying wish that this film would be made. There was no way it was going to beat us. If it took us another 10 years, we were going to keep trying, because there was no way we were going to start that process and not finish it and not deliver the film. Because you know, at the end of the day, we wanted to make the film more so for the people of Gaza than anybody else. And thankfully, we raised some money after we made the film in 2019. We raised 25,000 and staged the Red Carpet Film Festival in Gaza and showed the film outdoors for the first time to the people of Gaza. And 1,200 people turned up and all watched the film and loved it. So that was the best present we could ever have for making the film.
Obrigado. E professora, o Garry contou para a gente agora há pouco essa experiência que ele teve, né, com as autoridades palestinas na faixa de Gaza, né? Para quem não sabe, é em Casa, a faixa de Gaza é governada hoje pelo Hamas, que acaba levando a uma situação bastante complicada, né? Porque se você conversar com os israelenses, né, com o governo israelense, eles vão te dizer que a existência desse grupo, que é denominado radical, impede as negociações de paz, né? Um pouco como culpando a existência desse governo para que não haja paz. Como é que você vê essa questão, professor? É uma crítica justa? Existem maneiras de se lidar com isso? Como é que você vê do ponto de vista da história e da política?
Diogo, é um argumento, né? É um argumento que Israel facilmente tira da manga para dizer que não há interlocutor, né? Não tem com quem negociar, o governo palestino está dividido, portanto não pode haver uma solução, uma negociação, uma solução negociada, e não só justifica assim a não existência de paz, mas também justifica dessa forma todas as suas ações unilaterais, né? Porque supostamente não tem com quem negociar. No entanto, a política israelense, historicamente falando, inclusive, mas se a gente olhar só os últimos 10, 20 anos, ela é uma política de fragmentação. Em termos de população, a população palestina está fragmentada em pelo menos 5 grupos que dificilmente conseguem interagir, ter contato, comunicação, quais sejam os palestinos da Cisjordânia, palestinos de Jerusalém, que está na Cisjordânia, mas está anexada, então, né, e a comunicação é muito difícil. Palestinos da faixa de Gaza, palestinos dos campos ao redor dos países árabes, né, e palestinos da diáspora. Então, são pelo menos 5 grupos, na verdade, tem mais subdivisões aí. Em termos de governo, também o governo palestino ele se dividiu a partir de um boicote a eleições que deram maioria no Conselho Legislativo ao Hamas. Então, foi o que? Foi o boicote internacional a essa eleição, ao resultado dela, né? O resultado foi esse, os principais países puxados por Israel e os seus aliados não aceitaram essa configuração e boicotaram, de que forma? Retendo fundos. A autoridade palestina, ela foi criada, eu não posso me alongar muito, porque, né, mas a autoridade palestina, ela foi criada como resultado das negociações de Oslo, dos chamados acordos de Oslo. Num acordo, ou seja, ela receberia o repasse de fundos de Israel, de impostos palestinos colhidos e retidos por Israel, e fundos da União Europeia. Quando a eleição deu esse resultado, simplesmente esses fundos foram suspensos, foram retidos. Em 6 meses, o governo palestino já tinha quebrado, ninguém recebia salário, quer dizer, ninguém é exagero, mas grande parte da população é funcionário público de alguma forma. Então, poucas pessoas ainda conseguiam se manter, a dificuldade econômica era muito grande e a dificuldade de manutenção desse governo, né? Ou seja, grupos que não são aliados, que têm problemas entre si, o Hamas e o Fatah, né, o OLP como um todo, e aí racharam, né? E aí, quando racharam de que forma? A OLP dissolveu o Conselho Legislativo em Ramallah, ou seja, puxou o tapete do Hamas, que tinha vencido a maioria para esse conselho, e o Hamas, cujo berço e o braço, né, o local forte sempre foi a faixa de Gaza, sua origem está na faixa de Gaza, expulsou o Fatah da faixa de Gaza, e praticamente dessa forma, então, o governo se rompe e tiveram várias tentativas de reunificação, nenhuma delas foi frutífera, conseguiu ser realizada, eles têm enormes diferenças entre eles, não vamos simplesmente culpar a comunidade internacional plenamente, completamente por isso, mas é um objetivo da dominação, é um objetivo do controle. É mais fácil controlar dessa forma, inclusive. Não há qualquer objetivo ou pretensão ou plano de deixar que a faixa de Gaza territorialmente se une e se comunique com a Cisjordânia. No passado, houve projetos, né, no contexto de Oslo, de tentar alguma comunicação territorial entre esses dois territórios, mas isso também não está sobre a mesa. Então, manter o governo fragmentado faz parte de uma política que, aliás, é uma política que foi definida por pessoas como Kissinger, por exemplo, de uma política de protelamento, ou seja, afastar a solução do cenário, ou seja, tentar jogar quanto mais para frente uma solução para dar tempo para que o projeto avance. Qual que é o projeto? É um projeto expansionista. Israel não tem fronteiras demarcadas, Israel não tem uma constituição consolidada, tem leis básicas, mas não constituição, mas a falta de fronteiras e toda a política de colônia significa que ela está expandindo ainda as suas fronteiras, e a gente viu isso muito claramente quando esse ano Netanyahu anunciou o plano de anexar o que seria 60% da Cisjordânia. Ou seja, a expansão territorial ela não terminou, e a manutenção do governo dividido favorece essa continuação da política expansionista israelense, sem qualquer efetiva necessidade perante a comunidade internacional de sentar à mesa e colocar um fim, e fechar essa questão, ou seja, deixá-la em aberto, favorece a política israelense.
E, Garry, como é que essas conversas sobre política acontecem na vida cotidiana, né? Eu fiquei interessado em saber se você teve esse tipo de debate, né? Da minha experiência pessoal, por exemplo, nas vezes em que eu estive em Gaza, eu senti que progressivamente as pessoas talvez não se identificassem ideologicamente com Hamas, mas apoiassem mais, até devido ao que a professora Arlene contava antes, né, sobre esse bloqueio, enfim, sobre esse contexto de violência, que o governo passa a ser o último bastião de resistência, de alguma maneira, né? Você teve esse tipo de conversa com seus entrevistados? Como que você vê isso?
We didn't talk. We didn't set out to talk about politics, and we certainly didn't want to include anyone with a political agenda in the film. So we stayed away from anyone who was outspoken in regard to their political views. But of course, privately, we would talk with people, and certainly by 2018, we didn't see any level of support for Hamas at all with the people we were talking to. You know, the Hamas were elected in a kind of a knee-jerk fashion, as happens in every country. You know, there was a lot of political corruption happening at the time, and Hamas were just an alternative, and nobody really contemplated the effects that it would have, I think, or looked into the future and thought this is going to happen if we elect Hamas. It was just a popular sort of an uprising of sorts to make a point. But they have certainly suffered, as we've heard already. They're collectively being punished for, resistance. And to be very honest with you, it seems when you're there that Hamas being in power suits Israel completely. You know what I mean? It absolutely, it suits them to be able to say, we're not negotiating with terrorists. We're not going to sit down with terrorists. We're not going to allow terrorists to dictate the situation. And everybody knows, I mean, there's been countless, and we know, better than anyone here in Ireland, because we had a serious conflict in the north of Ireland for many, many years. And there was an organization called the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, who the British government said they would never sit down and talk to, and used them as an excuse not to negotiate a peace deal. Now, there was terrible wrongs being perpetrated by that organization, and I'm not justifying any of their actions. But the minute there was a will to change something, the minute the political will came about between negotiations from liberals in England and America as well at the time, the minute there was a will to change it, and people got over that notion of not sitting together around a table and having a negotiation, there was a peace deal within a relatively short amount of time. And a peace deal that has survived today. And there are thousands of people alive in Ireland today because people sat down and talked to their enemies and worked out their differences and came up with compromises. And everyone has to compromise in these situations to change things. But the problem is, if there's no will to change anything, then nothing will ever change. And there certainly is absolutely no sign of any will on the Israeli side to change anything, because it suits them to be able to control Gaza and keep them at arm's length and keep them over there and lock them in a pen. I mean, it's much easier for them than to sit down and go through the process of negotiations. In the very recent history, half of Gaza used to leave and go to work in Israel every morning and return in the evening, and there was no trouble. I mean, that reality still exists. The amount of, Hamas is a tiny little proportion of what's going on in Gaza. There's millions of people there that have no political affiliations, that want to get up in the morning, go to work, earn a few shekels or earn a few dollars or whatever they're earning, and feed their family and clothe their family and have a roof over their head that they can afford and lead a normal life. It's absolutely as simple as that, So I think it's politics. It's all about politics. The people of Gaza have got caught in the crossfire between a bad politics that has only worsened their life and continues to worsen it. And you can only despair at the fact that in 2020, a country is allowed to keep 2 million people under their thumb for their own political agenda and for their own political needs and desires. And to stop all freedoms for people there's no place in the world that's dealt with like Gaza and allowed to continue like Gaza. There's no blockade that exists within the public view of the entire international community that is allowed to continue as it has done in Gaza. And if it doesn't stop, and it doesn't stop soon, and people don't sit down and find a resolution, I despair of what's going to happen to Gaza and to the people of Gaza, because they can't. The place can't take any more. The infrastructure can't take any more. The system can't take any more, and certainly the people can't take any more.
Aproveitando que a gente está falando de política, eu tenho uma última pergunta antes de a gente ir para as perguntas da plateia. Professora, claro, a gente está falando de negociações de paz, de política, de Israel, e a gente não pode deixar de falar sobre esse acordo recente entre Israel e os Emirados Árabes, né, para normalizar as suas relações. Hoje a gente viu que Bahrein seguiu o mesmo exemplo, normalizando as relações. Muita gente falou a princípio que isso podia levar a uma onda de paz, né, um novo momento no Oriente Médio, mas me parece que houve muito otimismo para pouco resultado, né? Não sei como que você avalia isso, se você acha que esses movimentos podem, sim, levar a uma resolução do conflito palestino ou não. Como é que você enxerga essas notícias?
Is that a question for me?
Para ambos, for both of you.
Okay, well, from my point of view, I don't see it as being anything that'll change anything for the people of Gaza. I think it's so far removed from the people of Gaza, that deal, and is so agenda-ridden and self-serving that I don't know the detail of it, and I haven't gone into the intricacies of what the agreement holds, but I could hazard a guess that nothing particularly good will come of it for the people of Gaza. You see, the people of Gaza, the situation there is not, it's not like a country going to negotiate an agreement. It's not like the delegates of a country freely going to many meetings over a course of many months or years to formulate an agreement or a cooperation. The people of Gaza aren't afforded that opportunity. They haven't even started that opportunity. The most that's ever been put on the table is temporary ceasefires, which are broken within a week or two or a day or two generally because of frustration on the part of, it's not worth the paper it's written on. It's not even written on paper half the time. It's just verbal agreements to stop firing at each other. But we're so far removed from an agreement or a consideration for the people of Gaza that I just don't see this having any positive impact on the people of Gaza whatsoever.
Não, ele com certeza, a visão dele é isso mesmo. O acordo simplesmente torna visível, ou seja, põe à luz algo que já acontecia por trás das cortinas, ou seja, relações, contatos, colaboração de inteligência entre os Emirados Árabes, ou vários principados ali na península e o Estado de Israel. Vários outros países árabes também têm por detrás dos panos, têm relações, mantêm contatos, mesmo não tendo uma normalização e uma relação diplomática estabelecida, clara, à luz do dia. Agora, a forma como utilizaram a questão palestina nisso é que chama atenção, porque foi muito cínico. Foi muito cínico. Israel supostamente teria anunciado, foi anunciado que suspenderia a anexação anunciada recentemente da Cisjordânia. E olha que a gente não está nem falando da faixa de Gaza. O Garry tem razão em dizer que isso não toca na faixa de Gaza. Israel suspenderia a anexação. Em poucas horas, Netanyahu foi à mídia dizer, olha, isso não vamos suspender a anexação, vamos atrasar a anexação, vamos deixar por algum tempo o plano paralisado, mas nós não estamos voltando atrás em plano de anexação nenhum. Então, a questão palestina foi colocada como de maneira muito e sem ser consultados. Os palestinos não tiveram qualquer voz nisso, não participaram disso, não foram consultados, não se expressaram, não disseram o que pensavam, simplesmente foi colocado sobre a mesa uma tal de questão palestina para supostamente ser protegida pelos Emirados, para usar isso como argumento para normalizar relações que já estavam normalizadas. E sequer esse argumento colou por mais do que um par de horas.
E só um detalhe, que a gente esquece de mencionar, mas toda essa ideia de ceder, entre aspas, e interromper os anexamentos, eles já não deveriam ser feitos, eles já contrariam a lei internacional, professora? Quer dizer, é uma cessão a não cometer crimes, de certa maneira.
Sim, com certeza.
Eu queria, então, passar para algumas das perguntas que a gente recebeu aqui. A gente tem a Maria Cláudia Miguel perguntando, ou fazendo um comentário para o Garry, talvez. Ela diz que, além do mar, que traz o sentido de liberdade e pertencimento, as cenas que envolvem a violoncelista carregam um sentimento forte de construção e desconstrução da esperança. Gostaria, por favor, que o diretor abordasse esse aspecto da música. Então, Garry, se você pudesse falar um pouquinho sobre esse personagem, sobre a relação da música.
The rapper, is it?
The cello player.
Oh, Karma. Yeah, Karma's an amazing young lady. We found Karma in the music school, actually. We wanted music to be obviously a great part in this, because everywhere in Gaza there's music, and houses, they love it. They love dancing. If you ever witnessed a Gazan wedding, the band get on top of the lorry, the open back truck, and drive around the whole strip playing to everyone. Everyone goes out in the street and dances and sings, and the parties before weddings and after weddings. Weddings are a phenomenal event in Gaza, but there's music everywhere. And Karma, we wanted a musician. We cast the young fisherman boy Ahmed first, and did a lot of filming with him. And we wanted, a female character around about the same age. She's a little bit older than Ahmed, but we wanted someone from a different kind of, not from a refugee camp, to show someone from a different socio background. But when we found Karma and found that she was a budding young cellist, and she was a musician, and she's such a smart young lady at the time. She was just finishing school and wanted to go on to do law. And the reason she wants to go on and do law, and she's in her final year at the moment, is to represent the people of Gaza, and to be able to fight on their behalf on a legal side of things. And it's such a lofty thing for a young lady at that age. When we met her, she was only maybe 14 for the first time we met her. She had those aspirations for herself, and she had those ideas for herself. But music, it's a sad story, really, and we hit on it in the film a little bit. But when we met her in 14, 15, she played music all the time. Every time you went to Karma's house, she was playing music. But because she was playing it during that conflict, she was learning it during that conflict in 2014, she began to associate her playing the cello with death and destruction and hardship and long days and nights hiding in the blackness of their apartment, hoping they wouldn't get bombed. And so even though she was becoming very talented, she put away the cello, because every time she took it out, she felt sad. And that's why we have her playing the cello towards the very end of the film, and her telling that story, because it's such a reflection on how a situation can really pull the dreams from young people, and pull any sort of hope from them. Now, Karma was lucky because she's so well educated and she's such a thinker, even though that's a bad thing sometimes to have that ability in Gaza, because you know and hear too much and you understand too much. I don't know if you have the same old saying in Brazil as we do in Ireland, but ignorance is bliss. Do you know that saying? That sometimes it's a good thing to be ignorant of the situation, because it's much more difficult. It's folly to be wise is the end of that one, which means it's sometimes it's much harder to be smart and wise, because you hear and see too much. And that was really Karma. She was aware of everything, and she was so politically aware that it brought a deep sadness to her. Young Ahmed was not an educated young man, and all his day's endeavors was to fish and make, catch enough fish to feed the family that day. So his focus and his spectrum was much narrower. Hers was much broader. But Karma was beautiful, and the music she played was beautiful, but it was tinged with sadness, because she stopped playing because of association with trouble and with grief. But yeah, I don't know if that's answered the question that lady asked. But yeah, Karma is an incredible young lady.
Eu acho que esse caso toca também, Garry, na questão da saúde mental, né, do impacto que tem você viver, enfim, nessa situação de confinamento, entre conflitos, né? E eu queria passar uma pergunta agora para a professora Arlene, da Irma Vasconcelos. Ela diz: fiquei muito impressionada com a crueldade de estabelecer 1,4 km de mar para pescar. Gostaria de saber quem estabeleceu essa medida e com que critério. Professora, se você quiser responder.
I've lost the translation. Okay, you're not asking me.
Não, o cerco, ele é imposto pela força ocupante. e a força ocupante é o Estado de Israel. Segundo a ONU, a faixa de Gaza, ou seja, segundo a lei internacional e aqueles que a resguardam, a faixa de Gaza continua sendo território ocupado, não obstante o fato dos colonos terem sido retirados, os colonos israelenses. Por quê que é território ocupado? Porque a força ocupante, ou seja, o Estado de Israel, controla todas as fronteiras terrestres, marítimas, aéreas e consegue a qualquer momento reocupá-la fisicamente. Então, isso caracteriza território ocupado e por isso Gaza se qualifica dessa forma e de fato é dessa forma que segue. E Diogo e Garry, eu não queria ocupar muito tempo do Garry, porque acho que tem tanto para ele falar, eu estou à disposição para quando os organizadores quiserem fazer uma conversa outra, né? Estou à disposição. E eu queria aproveitar, se você me permite, colocar uma pergunta para o Garry, pode ser? Eu passo na frente das pessoas dessa forma, não queria fazer isso, mas é rápido. Garry, eu fiquei muito curiosa para saber, primeiro, qual é a passagem, assim, se você tem um momento predileto no seu filme, ou seja, uma cena, uma passagem que seja a sua cena predileta, a sua passagem predileta no filme. E segundo, são duas perguntas, se você tem filmes sobre Gaza que fazem parte do seu, assim, dos seus filmes também, do seu repertório, ou seja, dos seus filmes prediletos, daqueles que te conduziram para esse assunto, se você tem referências, outros filmes como referência sua sobre Gaza, de outros diretores, de outros cineastas. São duas perguntas.
Can you hear me? I don't know if I clicked the right button. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about the last question because I don't actually, when we went searching for films on Gaza, none of them were actually translated. They were very homegrown films that there was no English translations. And we tried our best before Zoom came along or before we were aware of Zoom. We used to try and set up this scenario where we'd be watching Gazan films in Ireland and we'd have the Gazan fixer on the phone trying to do a live translation, but the reception was always so bad. We'd be getting translations way behind or broken up or anything. So, but to be honest with you, the people in Gaza, you know, we were hoping that there'd be more of a look at at the kind of sensibilities we had or we felt as outsiders, because we were very conscious that we were two Irish guys going to Gaza to make a film about Gaza. So we wanted to make sure it was right, you know, that it represented the place and the people right. So obviously we tried to research as much as we could, but we found better research, to be honest with you, in terms of tweets and you know, online chats and going into forums and hearing what young people were saying and hearing what political forums were being set up just to get a sense of it. We talked to a lot of writers, you know, short story writers especially. I'm sure you're aware that the short story tradition is huge in Gaza because going way back, they couldn't afford to, they weren't allowed to write and they couldn't afford to write in large numbers. So that the short format became very important because they could scribble it on 3 or 4 pages and sneak it into printers and print it up and that. So we met a lot of the artistic community, both musicians and writers and poets. And they informed us quite a lot and they were quite philosophical about things, which informed us greatly as well. But from a filmmaker's point of view, no, because there isn't a lot of films, you know, there aren't an awful lot of documentaries have been made on Gaza. There was a German one that was called the Gaza Surf Club, and there was one about another film about surfing that the name escapes me, but it was about trying to get surfboards imported through the Israeli border, and they held on to them for 2 years and wouldn't let them come in while the community tried to make shift surfboards out of cork boards and things. But they weren't particularly well made. You see, the other aspect of what we wanted to do was we wanted to make a very cinematic film in Gaza, something that hadn't been done before. And we actually got an awful lot of pushback, especially from American funders about that, and we got really annoyed about this because the feedback we were getting was that from the promos that we were doing, which was the same kind of quality as the film, was that it wasn't authentic because it looked nice. And we went, what do you mean it's not authentic because it looks nice? And they went, well, you know, everything we see coming out of Gaza is dirty and is raw and that's the real Gaza. And we said, no, the real Gaza is beautiful. The real Gaza has beautiful people, is a beautiful place, is a beautiful society, and why don't they deserve to be shown in a cinematic light like the rest of the world? Why do they have to be shown in the dirt? You know, why would we as filmmakers go out of our way to make something look horrible for the people of Gaza? So no, we didn't have any film references whatsoever, you know what I mean? And maybe that was a good thing in hindsight, you know. I sometimes it's better steer a lonely course and see where you get to. So that answers the second question. The first question is, I have many favorite scenes, you know, because all my memories are tinged with the moment that we were there, as opposed to the filming of the moments nearly. You know, when the cameras stop and you're with a family and you're filming and the cameras stop and you spend 5 more hours with that family drinking copious amounts of coffee and tea and juice and listening to stories. And so, you know, we got so familiar with Karma and her mother and her family that all of the scenes with them just bring back such beautiful memories. We got to know the fisherman and his family so well. The paramedic Abraham, beautiful man, beautiful family, heartbreaking stories from him that we couldn't even put in the film because they were so heart-wrenching. We could barely edit them without crying, never mind put them on the screen. You know, him having to make a decision on the first week of the 50-day conflict that he'd have to say goodbye to his children because he couldn't emotionally keep coming home every night and leaving, because every morning he left, his 2 daughters would say to him, "If our house is bombed, will you please come back and take us away to the hospital or to the graveyard? We don't want any other ambulance man to come back and take us." I mean, you couldn't do that as a father every morning. It would just break your heart, you know. So to me, every scene when I watch Gaza is a memory, and every single one of those memories is beautiful, you know. So I won't pick one scene. I'll just say everything about those people in Gaza just make me smile.
Garry, você comentou agora há pouco que você tinha consciência, né, de que vocês eram 2 irlandeses indo a Gaza, e eu queria emendar então com a pergunta da Tamiris Razawi, que escreveu aqui para a gente. Eu assisti ao documentário e achei ele muito necessário. No entanto, fiquei me perguntando sobre as imagens que aparecem no final do documentário, principalmente das crianças. Qual foi o cuidado da equipe para a construção dessas imagens, para que elas não fossem feitas para satisfação do fetiche europeu de mostrar corpos não brancos em situação de violência? Enfim, uma pergunta mais em termos de representação, né? Qual foi como é que você se questionou sobre o fato de você, como irlandês, estar representando esse lugar?
Well, to be honest with you, we did lots of test screenings, and we cut lots of scenes that we shared with a lot of people in Gaza to make sure that we weren't interpreting things the wrong way, and that we weren't abusing any sort of image from Gaza that would be misconstrued elsewhere. And we had academics, we had filmmakers, we had fixers, we had educated people, we had normal, ordinary people. We did a lot of research in that to make sure that what we were showing wasn't going too far, because we could have gone as far as we wanted in any direction, not just in terms of representations of that nature, but in terms of the violence. Like, I mean, the war scene we showed, we have 120 hours of the most brutal war images you could possibly imagine on camera. And we showed 7 minutes of very, very pared back footage. You know, we were never, ever going to look into the eyes of a dead child, or you know, we don't show death as such. We show, if we do show it, it's from a distance and there's 1 or 2 shots when you know someone is dead, but we certainly didn't use any close-ups, or we didn't go in for any detail, because we just felt that it was unnecessary. So, you know, the footage we have from Gaza is brutal. It's absolutely unwatchably brutal, and at times it's just unbearable. And we have it, and it's there, but it will never ever be seen by an individual ever in the world, because it just doesn't further anyone's cause. And in terms of what's going on in Gaza, I don't think we need to push it that far, because I think, you know, what we see is enough to give people no doubt about the fact that what's going on there is horrendous. I'm drifting from the point a little bit, but in terms of representation, we did a lot of checks and balances, and we made sure that we weren't two Irish guys or an Irish crew that went out, filmed what we wanted, and come back and made what we wanted without any consultation. There was a strong and very dedicated Gazan crew behind this film as well, both male and female. One of our main interpreters, one of our main translators and interviewers was a very smart lady during 2015, her whole shoot there, and she's over in America now. She got out and went to college, and she's been showing the film to everyone in America. She has a forum over there. She writes about it. So if we're making the people of Gaza, both male and female, old and young, happy with the representation, then I can sleep at night.
Eu tenho recebido várias perguntas e vários comentários de pessoas surpresas ou impactadas em saber um pouco mais dessa situação, né? E aí eu pergunto tanto para você, Garry, quanto para a professora Arlene, uma pergunta da Andrea, que escreveu para a gente: como é que nós, em outras partes do mundo, podemos efetivamente fazer algo, né? As pessoas que assistem isso. Eu não sei se você, Garry, sente que já o seu trabalho de representação já tem algum impacto, não sei se você sente que existe alguma outra coisa que pode ser feita. E a mesma coisa a você, professora, se as pessoas, enfim, a gente que fica nessa situação de impotência, né? Se existe alguma coisa que pode ser feita.
It's a hard question to answer because, I mean, the situation is so big and is so, sorry for fiddling, I think I need to plug in, get some power to my phone. It's just such a big situation that I think people feel a little bit overwhelmed by how big it is and how little any one individual can do to sort it out. But I would advise against thinking that way, because, I mean, we're not politicians or negotiators or political analysts. We're filmmakers, and what we decided to do was just do what we do, but do it in Gaza and about Gaza. We just made a film, and that's having whatever impact it's having. No matter what you do or what you can do to help the people of Gaza, then do it, because they need all the help they can get. There's multiple charities that use 100% of donations on the ground and feed people and give people medications and try and fund, cancer treatments, because there's no cancer treatment really in Gaza to any extent. So trying to get people across borders to get Gaza treatment, and there's political. Talk to your local politicians. Every time a politician comes and knocks at my door for an election, I ask him what's his viewpoint or her viewpoint on the occupied territories and on Gaza. We have a bill going through government at the moment that's trying to go through on the occupied territories bill, and we're all trying to fight for that to go through. That'll do something. There's boycotts in existence. There's movement of goods in existence that you can join up and put your name to. Just start shouting, start talking about Gaza, start putting it on your agenda as being one of the things that you want to do something about. And if you look, there are things that you can do, and within your own area, within your own occupation, within your own, socioeconomic means, whether you have, what's your currency, €5 or 5,000, donate it to a worthy cause, help somebody, touch base with a Palestinian organization that's trying to do some good, agitate politically, just decide to do something, because if everybody got together and did something, then the collective would be absolutely fantastic.
Professor, o seu microfone tá mudo.
Desculpa. Não tenho nada a acrescentar, a não ser, isso me faz lembrar de um filme também, um filme feito a partir de um projeto de Edward Said, junto com Daniel Barenboim, e o filme se chama Conhecimento é o Início. Ou seja, conhecimento é o início mesmo, né? Então, isso que Garry fez, né, de fazer um filme e com o cuidado que ele teve, que ele acabou de explicar para a gente, né, de checar, de mostrar o filme para as pessoas de Gaza, de ter suas visões, de fazer 1000 checagens para saber se ele não estava fazendo uma mediação enviesada, algo que realmente representasse essas pessoas, que essas pessoas se sentissem confortáveis com essa representação e que gostassem, que amassem o filme. Isso já é uma enorme contribuição, e é uma contribuição que vai nesse sentido do conhecimento. E com o que eu trabalho também, é a melhor frase que resume o que a gente faz. Conhecimento é o início, é o que a gente pode fazer. Mas o que o Garry falou é muito interessante, ou seja, você também pensar que existem movimentos acontecendo. Em termos de Palestina, rapidamente, o movimento principal, o que está mexendo na Palestina, porque a política não mexe, né, é uma paralisia total, o que está mexendo é a sociedade civil. São as pessoas organizadas em termos de sociedade civil e com movimentos internacionais que são a partir realmente da posição individual das pessoas, ou seja, é isso, né? A somatória de pequenas iniciativas. Né? Existe o movimento de boicote, de BDS, que é o movimento da sociedade civil, ou seja, o que cada pessoa puder fazer individualmente começa com o conhecimento e com a sua postura e com sua exigência dos políticos, e assim por diante, é perfeito.
Obrigado, professora. E eu recebi mais de uma pergunta, Garry, voltando a você, sobre a sua experiência, né? Por exemplo, a Ivonete Pinto pergunta qual que é a sensação de aprisionamento em Gaza? Se você que passou só um tempo lá, né? Você que não mora lá, você também se sentiu aprisionado? E daí tem uma pergunta da Maria Miguel, sobre como foi a sua reação à cena em que um homem diz que sente raiva de todas as pessoas que respiram, menos as palestinas. Qual que foi a sua reação diante dessa cena? Enfim, resumindo as duas perguntas, como é que foi a sua experiência, Garry, passando por tudo isso, enfim, testemunhando tudo isso que você testemunhou?
Yeah, of course, you can't go into a place like Gaza and not feel imprisoned. You know, every time you go to the edges of Gaza, you're surrounded by walls and concrete and fences. And every time you go to the seafront, more often than not, you see gunboats patrolling the horizon, well, 3 kilometers, 3 miles out. So you can't but not feel imprisoned. But I suppose the hardest, or the most heart-wrenching and the saddest and the most emotional times that it hits you is when you're leaving, actually. Because all your friends and all your work colleagues from Gaza come to the edge of the border to say goodbye to you, to wish you well. And you know that you can step beyond that border and they can't. And you know that you can always step beyond borders and they might never be able to do so. And that really brings it home to you that they're in a prison and you know the rest of the free world aren't. And that's a terrifyingly sad thing. And in 2018, it was devastating to us. I mean, I don't think any of the crew that came in talked for a day after leaving Gaza, you know. So in terms of that interview with Ibrahim, when he says he hates everything that breathes, I mean, of course we were with him 100%. He cried his eyes out, and so did we that day, you know. You know, we understood him completely, his emotion. That's the man who, you know, I was telling you the story about had to sleep in the hospital because he couldn't bear to have his kids say to him every morning of the conflict, if we die or if our house is bombed, will you be the one to pick up the pieces? Like, I mean, of course the man is angry. Of course the man wants change. He's the same man in the film who says all we want to do is lead a normal life. That's all. We don't want any of this. We don't want any trouble. We just want to be left alone to lead a normal life. And who doesn't? I mean, I'm sure none of the people who are tuning in tonight, you know, in the comforts of their apartments or their houses and with their television screens and their computers and the food in the fridge and work to go to and maybe money in the bank or enough at least not to have to worry about starving. That doesn't exist in Gaza. You know, it just doesn't exist. You know, when we try to film, to show the film in Gaza, we can't because there's no cinemas in Gaza. Our fixer, who's 31 years of age, never has experienced sitting in a cinema. He's never been on a train. He's never been in an airplane. You know, we're so spoiled in the world, you know, we enjoy all of these simple pleasures and simple freedoms. They don't have any of that. So I cannot feel bad for a man who says anything under those circumstances, really, to be honest with you. He's not a political man. He's a man who goes out and picks up bodies and brings them back to hospitals, either to try and fix them or to bury them.
E Garry, eu tenho uma pergunta minha agora, fazendo intervalo aqui nas perguntas da plateia. Da minha experiência, né, como jornalista na região e pelo que eu vejo do trabalho de colegas, esse tipo de trabalho que você fez, às vezes, leva a uma crítica vinda do governo israelense ou de pessoas que se alinham ao governo, de que, por exemplo, você não mostrou o outro lado, né? Você não aborda, por exemplo, não é a minha opinião, né? Eu estou citando coisas que as pessoas poderiam dizer, né? Que você não mostra os foguetes disparados de Gaza, né? Existe todo esse discurso de que você precisa abordar esse outro lado, né? Da história de Gaza. Como é que você responde a esse tipo de crítica? Como é que você reage quando você recebe esse tipo de crítica?
Literally, that we didn't show the missiles.
Ou que vocês não mostraram, enfim, um outro lado, né, do ponto de vista de Israel, porque se você diz que Israel está cercando a faixa de Gaza, há pessoas que vão dizer que isso é porque existe uma política do governo de Gaza de disparar mísseis, ou existe um apoio da população a esse projeto, né? Enfim, trazendo um pouco o argumento que é propagá-lo pelo outro lado, digamos assim.
I mean, we have 90 minutes, you know. We're not sitting in a room having a debate that could last 2 hours or 5 hours or 2 weeks or 5 years. We had 90 minutes, and we do not apologize for deciding to make this from the point of view of the people of Gaza. The filmmakers in Israel can make their own films, you know, as many of them as they want. Happily, you know, I don't care who makes a film about whatever perspective they want to show. This is our perspective. This is our decision to show it in this way. It was our decision to base it completely in Gaza. That was an editorial decision we made, and we're very happy and unapologetic about that. When you set out to make a film, you have 90 minutes or so, and you have to set out your stall and decide what you want to do and stick with your convictions. To go over and back and give right reply to everybody about everything is a news piece, and there's plenty of those around. Switch on your internet and you'll get half of Israel giving out about the rockets, and you'll see the rockets, and you'll have half of Gaza giving out about the Israeli government, and you'll see the bombardments and tit for tat over and back, over and back, over and back. We didn't want to do that. This is our film. People can criticize it if they want. It's a free world, and we're happy to take any criticism on board and to try and respond to it. But at the end of the day, I can honestly say we've attended over 120 film festivals in 2019. We've had screenings in the United Nations all over the world. We've had every charity in the world nearly show it. It's been shown in Harvard University and Yale. It's been shown to students all over America. It's had 12 screenings in Israel, packed screenings, where we attended some of them, and we had some robust conversations. But at the end of the day, we were able to stand there and stand by our film and say, this is what we made, and we're quite happy with that.
E professora, se eu puder passar a palavra para você por um minuto, eu acho que isso também tem a ver muito com o debate em torno do jornalismo também, né? Muita gente tem dito também que essa obsessão pelo outro lado, né, por dar peso igual a pessoas a poderes que não têm o mesmo peso, né, que isso acaba distorcendo a situação em loco. Não sei se você, do ponto de vista da academia, da história, se você tem alguma coisa a adicionar a isso.
Certamente, não se, quer dizer, inclusive, do meu ponto de vista, não se trata de um conflito com dois lados iguais, muito menos, né? Não se trata de um conflito de fronteira, não se trata de conflito entre dois países. Eu acho que o que o filme consegue retratar muito bem, o filme de Garry, é que trata-se de uma ocupação militar. Então, o olhar dele é de dentro, ou seja, do território ocupado, da população vivendo sob essa ocupação. Não há uma necessidade de retratar dois lados, quando esses dois lados, se é que existem, não são iguais. Não são dois lados em guerra, não se trata disso. Esse é o tipo de visão que se tenta passar para simplificar o caso e tentar eximir Israel da responsabilidade da ocupação.
Obrigado, professora. Queria aproveitar também e ler algumas das mensagens, os elogios que a gente está recebendo, para não passar em branco. A Thalita Tristão está dizendo, por exemplo, muito bem escolhido o documentário para abrir a mostra. Gaza, o documentário Gaza é simplesmente indispensável. Um dos melhores documentários que eu já assisti. Trata-se de um importante registro histórico, que é lindo e duríssimo, e além disso a fotografia é belíssima. Então, Garry, só para te passar esse comentário que você não pode ler agora. E antes da gente encerrar, acho que a gente já está batendo na marca dos 90 minutos aqui, a duração justamente do documentário do Garry. Quero perguntar, Garry, professora, vocês têm mais alguma coisa a adicionar? Tem mais algum comentário que vocês gostariam de fazer sobre o filme, sobre Gaza? Não sei se, Garry, por exemplo, você quer contar para a gente um pouco se você se surpreendeu com alguma coisa dessa experiência, ou enfim, como é que você mudou durante esse processo?
I've changed entirely because of my experience in Gaza. I think I've become a much better person because of it. It's such a humbling experience working in Gaza, and you cannot leave Gaza and go home without smothering your own children with love and attention, and your own family, and being thankful for what we have. And it's given me a focus that I'll never lose. I'm in touch with Gaza every single day. We're fundraising all the time for charities. We're talking to people. We're helping people. We're trying to do what we can. We're trying to create initiatives out there. It's changed my whole perspective. It's become, I have to work for a living, obviously, but it's become my second job. And I have a second family and an extended family. And Gaza is my favorite place in the whole world. So, yeah, it's given me all that. And it's also created a situation for not just me, but many, many people who are associated with the film, where we do, and this answers an earlier question, we do see the little things that we do making a difference. We absolutely do. Whether it's, raising a few thousands and seeing pictures of fruit baskets being delivered to 500 families who are hungry and their kids are malnutritioned, or if it's even at the start of COVID, we were organizing sanitizers and masks, and to just see them being delivered. You can do things, and everyone can do things, and that's what's changed with us. We have a mission now, and it's a mission that we'll go to our graves fighting for. And this film was just the start of that, really, the start of that process. And I'd also just like to thank you guys for staging the film, because a film is no good if it's put in a drawer and nobody sees it. It has to be seen, and everybody that shows this film and every audience that watches it hopefully learns a little bit more and understands a little bit more, and has an appreciation for what's going on there, and the horrible wrongs that are going on there. And if it changes one person every time an audience sit down to watch it, to go up and motivate them to do some good, then that does some good, and that makes us feel satisfied that what we have put into the world might change, even things in a small way. But small things grow into big things, and we sincerely hope for the best. I also must tell you, I have 3 minutes of power or something left, 3%. So I hope I don't quit in the middle of this. But no, thank you all for watching and for having the film. And yeah, if anyone out there is motivated to do something, all I can say is do it. Don't talk about it anymore, just do it.
Obrigado, Garry. Professora, você tinha alguma última palavra nesses últimos 3 minutos de bateria do Garry?
Não, só agradecer imensamente o Garry pelo filme, pela oportunidade dessa conversa, a você também, Diogo, aos organizadores dessa conversa, e dizer que para mim realmente é um prazer, é um privilégio poder manter essa conversa com todos vocês, com você, Garry, obrigada pelo filme.
Professora, se puder fazer
Thank you.
uma última pergunta, porque muita gente me pergunta geralmente por indicações, né? Sugestões de filmes, de livros. Se alguém que está assistindo a gente quiser conhecer mais sobre a Palestina, sobre Gaza, você tem alguma recomendação imediata?
Bom, sobre Gaza, uma autora, tem vários livros, mas se chama Sarah Roy. Viveu bastante tempo em Gaza, tem excelentes livros sobre a faixa de Gaza. E são muitos os filmes, né? Tem um autor israelense hoje, Eyal Weizman, ele é arquiteto também, tem um livro que explica muito bem a ocupação, o significado dessa ocupação, que está por trás da política da ocupação. E os filmes são vários sobre a Palestina, como o Garry também mencionou, e esse filme contribui imensamente.
Tá ótimo, obrigado então. Então, queria agradecer.
A coluna do Diogo também, né, Diogo?
Pois é, o blog Orientalíssimo. E por isso que eu pergunto, porque justamente quando eu menciono isso no blog, eu recebo muitas mensagens procurando sugestões de leituras, né? Principalmente, e a gente tem uma carência de leituras em português, infelizmente, né, professora? As pessoas tentam muito achar e não encontram.
Em português não tem mesmo. Sobre a faixa de Gaza não tem nenhum livro em português específico de história explicando, mas Sarah Roy em inglês é bastante, né, acessível, enfim.
Ótimo, então. Então, eu vou encerrar aqui, antes que o Garry perca a bateria. Queria agradecer nossos convidados. Recapitulando, a gente conversou com o Garry Keane, que é um cineasta que produziu o filme Gaza. A gente conversou também com a Arlene Clemesha, que é professora de História Árabe Contemporânea na Universidade de São Paulo. Queria agradecer também a você que acompanhou a gente nesse bate-papo e queria lembrar vocês que esse vídeo fica aqui no canal do Árabe para você assistir de novo e compartilhar com seus amigos. A Mostra Mundo Árabe de Cinema, recapitulando, é realizada pelo Instituto da Cultura Árabe, em parceria e correalização do SESC São Paulo, patrocínio da Câmara de Comércio Árabe Brasileira e apoio do Instituto do Sono e da FAMBRAS, que é a Federação das Associações Muçulmanas do Brasil. Por último, queria lembrar você que está assistindo que a Mostra Mundo Árabe de Cinema está em cartaz até 27 de setembro, na plataforma da Mostra e também no site do SESC. Os links foram postados aqui no chat. E é isso, então. Muito obrigado a todos e boa noite.
E Garry, have a safe trip back home.
Boa viagem, Garry.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care.